while. It's been literally like 3 months or something since I posted my last video, and life's been hectic, so here's where I've been. Back in May of 2025, on May 28th, I had went home after work like any normal day, and at some point around maybe 7 o'clock, I got a notification on my phone basically saying that we had a 30-minute evacuation notice. Now, an evacuation notice and an evacuation order are two very different things. An evacuation notice basically tells you, hey, like, this is the amount of time about that you have to get ready for an evacuation order to come in. Not that it's going to come in 30 minutes. It just means have everything ready and packed in 30 minutes in case of an evacuation order down the line. I went live like any person would who has to experience these kinds of things. Normal people who experience things like hurricanes and earthquakes the same way that they don't necessarily react when these kind of natural disasters happen. Realistically, we experience them quite enough to be like, oh well. 1:45 a.m. on May 29th, we were evacuated from home. We were given the evacuation order basically saying you have to leave right now ASAP. So because of the evacuation order, obviously all of our stuff were already packed except for our essentials. So I actually got told at around 1:10-ish that we were going to be evacuated. I think it was 1:17 on the dot that we were being evacuated, because one of my friends works in the fire department. She had told my best friend, and he told me like, yeah, this is happening right now. So I was already preparing. My mom and everybody in my house was asleep. My mom kind of heard me like grabbing all of my essentials, and she was like, what's going on? Because I was gonna wake them up, but I was gonna wait for the order to come in to be like, oh, we're evacuating. But because my mom had already woken up, I was like, yeah, we're evacuating right now. And she was like, how do you know? And obviously I couldn't just be like, I just know, because she wouldn't believe me. I just said, just trust me, like, it's happening, just give it like 30 minutes. Because the post hadn't come out, the alert on all of our phones hadn't come in yet. But, you know, the firefighters were told, yeah, this is happening right now. And so they were going to the next community over to basically say, this is happening, you guys have to leave. And then they're gonna give us the evacuation order because, you know, we weren't at risk of the road being closed off, the other community was. They were at risk of, if the fire had crossed the road, they'd be literally stuck there. So they were told first, given all the gas and stuff, and then they left. But for us, we weren't, because we weren't necessarily, we were at risk of burning because it was closer to us than it is to the other community. But if it crossed the road, which it ended up crossing the road, since then, you know, whatever. So we were evacuated at 2 in the morning on May 29th. We drove multiple hours to get to where we are today, and where we have been for 8 months and then some. I'm obviously in a hotel, which means that my Wi-Fi isn't that necessarily that great. I've been using most of my data, but we got extra data from, well, at least I got extra data from my phone carrier because of wildfires in my area. So I've been kind of taking advantage of that, but also I do use the Wi-Fi most of the time. Just sometimes for things like this or streaming, I'll use my data just because the Wi-Fi is better that way. Because I'm not a IRL creator, I don't usually always show my face on YouTube. It's kind of hard to put out content. The fuck? So I don't have any videos to post really, which sucks because I'd love, you know, to have content to post, but I just don't, due to me not preparing for this. The wildfire, there's 5 wildfires in my area back home. Also, please don't talk about my nails. I don't get fake nails, I just don't have a nail clipper to clip these, and every time I chew them I end up hurting my hand. This is where I've been. I do have a couple of projects in the works. I don't know when I'm going to put them into action and actually start the progress on these projects, but yeah.